Gina. That was a great introduction. Wow, it is fabulous to be here with all of you. Being on a college campus, I feel like I'm home. That and I brought family. So I have my son, Alex, with me, guy in the blue shirt. There he is. Just so you all know, Alex has been my tech support since second grade. It's actually true. He runs his own small business now, but he's picked up a new sideline, and that is support your mother when she runs for President of the United States. Way to go, Al. So I'm just so glad to be here with all of you. I thought what we do today is I tell you a little bit about myself, tell you a little bit about why I'm in this race. We'll take some questions, and then selfie. That's I'm learning. This is the heart of democracy, is selfies. It actually is. So I was born and raised in Oklahoma. Whoa, okay. Yeah, there aren't a lot of us. I was born and raised in Oklahoma. I am what used to be called a late in life baby. My mother always just called me the surprise. I have 3 older brothers, much older. They're all retired now. They're all back in Oklahoma. They are to this day referred to as the boys, to distinguish them from the surprise. All 3 of my brothers joined the military. My oldest brother, Don Reed, was in combat off and on in Vietnam for about 5.5 years. My second brother, John, was stationed overseas for a little over a year. My third brother, David, trained as a combat medic, which has given rise to a rule in our family: never choke in front of David. The man carries a pocket knife, and he is convinced he could do an emergency tracheotomy. We do not plan to give him a chance. So when we were growing up, our daddy had a lot of different jobs. He sold paint, he sold carpet, he sold fencing, he sold housewares. And when I was in middle school, the boys were all gone by then, and my daddy had a massive heart attack. We thought we were going to lose him. He made it, but he couldn't work for a long, long time. And even now, I remember the day that we lost the family station wagon. I remember how my mother used to tuck me in at night, how she'd kiss me on the forehead and pull my blankets up and pat them, and always give me this big smile, and I always knew what was coming. She'd leave the room, close the door, and I'd hear it click, and then I'd hear her start to cry. She never wanted to cry in front of me. This is when I learned words like mortgage and foreclosure. And one day I walked into my folks' bedroom, and laid out on the bed was the dress. Now, some of you in here will know the dress. It's the one that only comes out for weddings, funerals, and graduations. And down at the foot of the bed is my mother in her slip and her stocking feet. And she's walking, she's pacing, she's got her head down, and she's saying, "We will not lose this house. We will not lose this house. We will not lose this house." She was 50 years old. She had never worked outside the home, and she was terrified. And she looked up and saw me standing in the door. I'm just a kid. And she didn't say anything. She looked at me, and she looked at that dress, and she looked back at me, and she walked over to the bed and picked it up and pulled it on and put on her high heels, wiped her face, and she walked to the Sears and got a full-time minimum wage job answering phones. That minimum wage job saved our house, and it saved our family. And I think of that as the lesson my mother taught me, that no matter how scared you are, and no matter how hard it looks, when it comes down to it, you dig down deep, you find what you have to find, you pull it up, and you take care of the people you love. That's it. And it was years later I came to understand that wasn't just what my mother taught me. It's what millions of people do across this country every single day. Millions of people, no matter how scared they are, no matter how hard it looks, dig down deep, find what they have to find, pull it up, and take care of themselves and the people they love. That's what we do. But it was only years after that that I came to understand that same story is also a story about government. Story about government. Because think about it this way. When I was a girl, a full-time minimum wage job in America would support a family of 3. It would cover a mortgage, it would pay utilities, and it would put food on the table. Today, a full-time minimum wage job in America will not keep a mama and a baby out of poverty. That is wrong, and that is why I am in this fight. And understand this difference. It's no accident. It's not something that just naturally happens over time. It's about who government works for. When I was a girl, the question asked in Washington about the minimum wage is, where do we set it to give a family of 3 a real chance in America? Where do we set it to give them a foothold in America's middle class, a chance to have something solid that they can build on? Today, the question asked in Washington is, where do we set the minimum wage to maximize the profits of giant multinational corporations? Well, I don't want a government that works for giant multinational corporations. I want one that works for our families. So, like I said, the boys went off and joined the military. It was a path to the middle class for them. Me, I had a different dream. I have known what I wanted to be since 2nd grade. It's true. Some of you laugh. You didn't decide until what, like 4th grade? 5th in the back there. Yeah, I get it. But I have known what I wanted to be since 2nd grade. I wanted to be a public school teacher. Can we hear it for America's public school teachers? Oh, this is what I wanted, and I invested early. I used to line my dollies up and teach school. Had a reputation for being tough but fair. Good teaching evaluations generally going. But by the time I graduated from high school, we didn't have the money for a college application, much less to send me off to 4 years at university. So, like a lot of Americans, I don't have a straight path story. I have a story with a lot of twists and turns in it. So here's how my story goes. I was a high school debater, got a scholarship to college, yay! Woohoo! And then at 19, I fell in love, got married, dropped out, and got a minimum wage job. Yeah! And look, something I chose, a good life. But not the dream of teaching. So we're living down in Houston, my new husband and I, and that's where I found it. A commuter college, 45 minutes away, that cost $50 a semester. Yeah. People are like, whoa. Yes, what planet was that on? I may want to visit that place someday. $50 a semester, and for a price I could pay for on a part-time waitressing job. I finished my 4-year diploma. I became a special ed teacher, and I have lived my dream job. There it is. Yep, you bet. So do we have any public school teachers in here or public school teachers to be? Do we? We have some. There we go. There we go. A few more. Good. Good. So I'm going to need you to back me up on this. This is not a job. It is calling. I love those babies. I had 4 to 6-year-olds in special education. To this day, I think I could remember all of their names. I know I remember all of their faces. I remember things we worked on. I love those children, and I love the work. And I probably would still be doing that work today, but my story has some more twists and turns. So here's how it goes. By the end of the first year, I was visibly pregnant. And the principal did what principals did in those days, wished me luck, and hired someone else for the job. Yep. So, okay, I'm at home. I got a baby. I can't get a job. What am I going to do? I got to do something. I know. I'll go to law school. So, by this time we're living in New Jersey, found a state law school that costs $450 a semester. That's right, go Scarlet Knights. Yeah, found a state law school, $450 a semester. Baby on hip, 3 years of law school, graduated visibly pregnant. You will discover a pattern to these stories. And by the way, Alex waited until after graduation to be born. Thank you, son. Graduated from law school, took the bar, and practiced law for 45 minutes. Yeah, I know, it was a little longer than I'd planned, but I gave it up quick and went back to my first love, teaching. I traded little ones for big ones and spent most of my life teaching in law school. Made other significant changes in my life. Husband number 1, hint, it is never a good sign when you have to number your husbands. H1, as we just call him for short. H1 and I parted ways, but then I found Bruce, known as H2. I've held on to him, and he's a good guy. So, you bet. And is teaching classes today, so otherwise he'd be here with us. So anyway, I'm teaching in law school, and I don't know if it's this way for everybody, but me, I grew up in a family barely holding on to our place in America's middle class. So it was all about money. I wanted to learn about money and teach about money. So I taught everything about it. Contract law, commercial law, payment systems, secured transactions, corporate finance, partnership finance, debtor-creditor law, bankruptcy law, law and economics. If it was about money, I taught it. But here's the thing. There was always just one central question that I worked on. And that question is what's happening to working families in America? Why is America's middle class being hollowed out? Why is it that people who work every bit as hard as my mother worked 2 generations ago, today find the path so much rockier and so much steeper, and for people of color, even rockier and even steeper? Why? And the answer is just like the answer on minimum wage. It's who government works for. Think of it this way. We have a government that works great for giant drug companies. It's just not working for anybody trying to get a prescription filled. We have a government that works great for anyone who wishes to invest in private prisons or private detention centers down at our border, just not for the human beings whose lives are torn apart by those places. We have a government That works great for giant oil companies that want to drill everywhere, just not for the rest of us who see climate change bearing down upon us. And here's the deal. When you see a government that works great for those with money and is not working so great for everyone else, that is corruption, pure and simple, and we need to call it out for what it is. Corruption. Corruption. And the influence of money in Washington is everywhere. It's campaign contributions, you bet it is, but it is so much more. The lobbyists, the lawyers, the PR firms, right? The think tanks, the bought and paid for experts. Think of it this way. Whatever issue brought you here today, whether it's gun violence, medical care, student loans, whatever issue, immigration, climate, whatever gets you up, if there's a decision to be made in Washington, I guarantee it's been influenced by money. I guarantee it's been shaped by money. I guarantee it's been framed by money, nudged by money. In fact, I want to tell you all a quick story. And that is, back in the early 1990s, we knew the science on climate. Not the details, but we had the basics down. We were calling it global warming, but the basics, the scientists were out there saying, hey, putting this much carbon into the air, it's going to be a disaster. A disaster. Now, here's the thing. Democrats in Washington and Republicans in Washington were working together. They were they're trying to figure out, do we need to give the EPA more authority? Do we need to put more money into cleanup? Do we need new regulations, right? That's what they're talking about, early 90s. And then along come the Koch brothers. Ah, I see you've heard of the Koch brothers. Yes, along come the Koch brothers who made their money in fossil fuels, and the big oil companies and some of the big polluters. And they get together and in effect say, wow, if Congress is serious about climate, if they're really going to make changes, that's going to bite into our profits. That's going to be hard on our bottom line. So they have an investment decision to make. They could decide, you know, fossil fuels, fuel of the past, we're going to go into clean. They don't do that. They could decide, we're going to put our R&D money into how you get carbon out of the air, they don't do that. They make an investment. They invest in politicians in Washington. They invest in lobbyists, right? In campaign. Oh, they invest in bought and paid for experts. Those climate deniers, right? You know these guys who say, yes, I am a doctor of, no. And as a doctor, I've studied climate forever. Climate has been here, and it's been climatey for a long time. And the dinosaurs loved it, and it's all going to work out fine. And why do they do that? Do you ever think about this? Why were there groups like the Koch brothers willing to put $1 bazillion into supporting that, into lifting it, into getting that word out? Why? Because there was something those bought and paid for experts could build. An umbrella over the politicians. So the politicians could hide under that umbrella and keep taking money from the Koch brothers, keep taking money from the oil industry, keep taking money from the big polluters, and when challenged about it, say, gee, I don't know, I'm not a scientist. You want to understand the climate crisis we face in America and the world today? It's 25 years of corruption in Washington that brought us here. And when money has this much influence in Washington in so many areas, understand, we're not going to fix this with one statute over there and 2 amendments over there and a couple of regulations over here. No, it's going to take big structural change to get it done. Big change. Structural change. And you know how I want to start with big structural change? The place to start is to attack the corruption head on. Just go after it. Enough of playing defense. It's time to go on offense. And here's the good news. You bet. Here's the good news. I have the biggest anti-corruption plan since Watergate. That's good. Here's the bad news. We need the biggest anti-corruption plan since Watergate. So you wouldn't be surprised. This plan has a whole lot of moving parts because money gets felt in so many different ways. So I just want to give you a sample from this plan. Here's where I love to start. End lobbying as we know it. Block the revolving door between Wall Street and Washington. Here's one you may never have thought about, but it matters. Make the United States Supreme Court follow basic rules of ethics. They are. Yes. Okay, I really could do these all day long. I'm going to do just one more. You want to hose out some corruption? Here's a way to do it. Make every single person who runs for federal office put their tax returns online. Alrighty, so there's part one of big structural change, attack the corruption head on. Part two, we need some structural change in this economy. Think about it this way. We now have giant corporations in this country. Corporations that swallowed up little businesses, medium-sized businesses. Shoot, they've swallowed up what used to be big businesses. And the thing about it, it's not just the economic impact, it's the power it gives them. The power over their employees, the power over their customers, the power over their communities, the power over Washington and the decisions made there. We need a president of the United States with the courage to enforce our antitrust laws. Break up big tech, break up big ag, break up big banks. Another way we need to think about structural change in this economy, it can't just be about the government and big corporations. We need more power in the hands of workers. That means make it easier to join a union and give unions more power when they negotiate. Unions built America's middle class. Unions will rebuild America's middle class. Here's another way you can get structural change in the economy. It's time for a wealth tax in America. 2 cents. All right. So here's the idea behind my wealth tax. Okay, this is going to be a tax on the big fortunes, the ones above 50 million. So for all of you who are worried, your first 50 million, free and clear. Yeah, I see some people saying, oh, I can deal with this woman. Okay. First 50 million, free and clear. But on your 50 millionth and first dollar, you got to pitch in 2 cents. 2 cents! And 2 cents on every dollar after that. And just so everybody clicks with this, Anybody in here either own a home, grow up in a family that owned a home, right? You've been paying a wealth tax, right? It's just called a property tax. And all I want to do different is for the top, listen to this number, 0.1% of fortunes in this family, in this country. For those, I want to say, yeah, it's your real estate, but that's not actually the biggest thing. It's also your stock portfolio, the diamonds, the Rembrandt, and the yacht. And I know you're going to be shocked to hear this, but I try to follow closely. There are some billionaires who take real exception to this. The notion that they should have to pay 2 cents on their fortune. I mean, they say they worked hard. Okay, no, but really, they had a great idea, they were able to follow it through, they worked hard. Good for you, good for you. But here's the deal. You built a great fortune in America. I guarantee you built it at least in part using workers all of us help pay to educate. You built it, at least in part, getting your goods to market on roads and bridges all of us help pay to build. You built it, at least in part, protected by police and firefighters all of us help pay for. We are Americans, we are glad to do it. We want to make those investments in opportunity. All we're saying is, when you make it big, when you make it really big, when you make it 0.1% big, pitch in 2 cents so everybody else gets a chance to make it. 2 cents. Oh, and what can you do with 2 cents? I'll tell you what you can do with 2 cents. Universal child care for every baby in this country age 0 to 5. 100% of them. Universal pre-K for every 3-year-old and 4-year-old in America. Stop exploiting the largely women, largely black and brown women who do this work. We can raise the wages of every preschool teacher and child care worker in America. 2 cents. And we can do all of that for our babies. We can also put $800 billion of new federal money into our public schools. I believe in public education. That quadruples the funding for schools that are teaching low-income children. It fully funds teaching every child with disabilities in this country so they get the education they need. Leaves every public school with an excellence grant of about $1 million that lets that school decide what they need, whether it's more science, more music, school buses, whatever they need to be an excellent school. It's an investment in public education. 2 cents. That same 2 cents. So our babies, our K-12, and for that same 2 cents, we make sure that anyone can go to technical school, community college, or 4-year college tuition free. We can help level the playing field and put $50 billion directly into our historically black colleges and universities. Just one more, that same 2 cents gives us enough money to cancel student loan debt for 95% of the folks who've got it. Pretty amazing. 2 cents. cents. We can invest in an entire generation. And I just want to mention one more. And that is because I believe you want to understand a country's values, look at their budgets, look where we're spending money. I believe that after a lifetime of hard work, people are entitled to retire with dignity. That means protecting and expanding Social Security. And I've got a plan, not only to protect Social Security, but to increase every Social Security and disability check by $200 a month, lift millions of people out of poverty, and help millions more have a little more in the budget. That's what it should be. So that's part two. Part one, tack the corruption head on. Part two is structural change in the economy. Part three, we need to protect our democracy. Yep. I support a constitutional amendment to protect the right of every American citizen to vote and to get that vote counted. We need a federal law to ban all political gerrymandering. Enough. We need to roll back every racist voter suppression law in this country. And just one more on this. Overturn Citizens United. Democracy is not for sale. So that's it. I just want three things. Attack the corruption head on, structural change in the economy, and protect our democracy. And to a lot of people, that might sound like three things that are just kind of disjointed. No. They all go to a fundamental question. Whether or not we're going to be a country that has plenty of opportunity for those born into privilege and not much opportunity for anyone else, or whether we're going to be a country where every single child in this country has an opportunity for a first-rate education. That's what we can do. That's what we can do. Opportunity. That's what it's all about. Opportunity to get a good job. Opportunity to be able to start your own business without getting crushed by student loan debt. Opportunity. Remember, I was